Well, welcome everyone to Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game. I'm your host, Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and money color commentator. On today's show, the Dodd-Frank impact. Part 3 in our series on your home mortgage is your number one IOU with nationally recognized mortgage expert and author, Steve Walsh. Welcome to the third segment, Steve.
I don't know if I'm glad to be here yet.
Well, you should be. Well, we're glad you're here because you're giving us the little look under the kimono.
Yeah.
You know, so Dodd-Frank. This all usually falls on party lines. You know, if you're a Democrat, you love it. It's protectionist. It's consumer-centric. If you're on the Republican side, it's a constrain. It's a restraint. It's choking business. There are some real problems, and people can kind of see it now. I don't know if we need to dump the whole thing, but we definitely need to make a major edit job on it because it's affecting people in ways we never thought.
Yes. On that note, I'd like to say I'm glad to be an independent, it's preventing a lot of very qualified borrowers from buying a house. And, I could sit here and give you hundreds of stories. Borrowers with millions of dollars, plenty of resources. They walk in, they're like, hey, I want to buy this house. And then you have to send them, no, because at Dodd-Frank you can't because your income doesn't meet the Dodd-Frank requirements. And so Dodd-Frank, they put this, they created two groups of mortgages, right? Qualified mortgages and non-qualified mortgages. Qualified mortgages are what 90% of the world is. So what goes into a qualified mortgage? You have to have income, assets, all your ducks in a row. Here's the problem. The self-employed borrowers don't necessarily have the easiest income to understand. They have very, savvy financial guys moving it, making their income not look so great on paper, but they're living very well, right? So they've got millions in the bank. They've got, plenty of resources. They want to put 50% down on the house. So it's a loan you would do all day. These are the borrowers you want. The 1% and 3% down loans. You want to kind of offset those. If you had a portfolio, you say, okay, I'm going to do some favors for these people, 1% and 3% down. But how do I offset my risk? How do I balance my risk? Boy, when someone comes along with an 800 credit score and putting 50% down, I want to lend to this person because now I have somewhat balanced, balanced portfolio. And yet this guy can't get a loan. He can't get a loan because of his income. Now it can be declining. It's like, hey, you made $200,000 in 2015, and in 2016 you made $150,000. You're declined. That's called declining income. We're not going to do the loan for you. He's like, but I took some months off. I traveled to, I went to the world. I took my kids to Africa for safari. Doesn't matter. That's declining income. Call us when you have 2 years stable income.
Now I noticed, and because this show is dominantly a financial advisory show on insurance professionals, we had a person that had this very problem, and he had this cash, and they said, no, it's not enough. It has to be predictable income. So he went in and bought a single premium immediate annuity between the time today and the time he'll retire, because when he retires, he'll have that money. 5 year, they were okay with that because it was predictable, it was guaranteed.
Right.
So strange that they had to do this. Save money.
Right. And so I had a retired gentleman. He had to transfer for $15,000. He had to set up a defined distribution of $15,000 a month. And so we transferred money from an account with several million to an account with $975,000 in it. I remember the amount. And he goes, I'm going to wire that $15,000 today. And you're saying that'll get me the loan. I go, yes. He did it. And then he reversed it so it would be a non-taxable event. He goes, why would I take money out of my retirement account when I have $1 million sitting in my checking account?
Right, exactly.
I'm like, just do it. You want this 3% interest rate? This is what you have to do. Just show them that you can do it. And so he did it. So retirees have issues too, because a lot of retirees are heavy on the assets, but not necessarily on the income. So they might want to live in a little bit nicer house. Well, they can't qualify because of the Dodd-Frank guidelines. 43% debt to income. It's, can't go above that.
Well, let's talk about, we know why they did it. I think there was, I don't think the intent was wrong. Dodd-Frank was trying to help people never get in this fix that we got ourselves in 2008. So let's just say the heart was right, but somebody didn't do the math, and they made protocols that are really injurious. You just named one people group, the plight of the self-employed.
Yeah.
I mean...
Yeah, if you're it's hard enough being self-employed, right? You have to support yourself, employees, you're responsible for them. Obamacare, separate section. And now when you go to, you can't even buy a house. And so we've declined several retirees, self-employed borrowers with plenty of resources. They can afford the payment. So they can rent a house with a $2,000 a month payment, but they can't buy that house with a $1,500 a month payment.
Yeah, well, we might have some solutions for this in the next couple segments. We're going to talk about HECM and see if that helps out the senior.
Yes.
Maybe
Yeah,
not.
Maybe not. You're right.
Okay, but here's what I want to. Here's another one that really gets me and it really bothers me.
Right.
I have a lot of people that are very deep, very wealthy, but very deep in real estate holdings. So they have tons of wealth, but they are illiquid. They don't really have the liquidity.
Right.
And even though they may have a this is the one I'm thinking of, $20 million portfolio, and they even have some net worth. It isn't all financed.
Yeah.
How can the wealthy who have serious money, great FICO score, have enough to put down, but they don't have liquid cash on a regular income basis?
Yeah. Good luck. That's it. Retirees can look at HECM mortgages. So what are the options? Pay cash, HECM mortgage, or buy something that you can afford. But their income can almost be zero in a lot of these cases, or very low. So they can't even afford a $20,000 mortgage. So yeah, they have to pay cash or look at.
Well, I'm stunned by this because I heard you talk about this once before, where you had a guy that was working at the Taco Bell, right? Tell that story. That's a great story.
Yeah, the guy at Taco Bell can buy a house with 3% down. Have $12 left in his bank account. And I'm not throwing Taco Bell under the bus here.
No, we love Taco Bell.
We love it, right. But, they could buy a house 3% down. No money left after they close on the loan. $10, $12 left in their bank account. He gets a mortgage. Now I have another guy, $1 million loan on a $3 million house. He's got $7 or $8 million in commercial real estate, all free and clear. He can't refinance his house. I'm in the middle of, there's nothing we can do. He can't refinance.
I can't even get a HELOC loan.
Right. So he came to me after going to a very large bank that I won't name here, and they said, here's what we'll do for you. You're declined, and they sent him a 9-page email, and there was a lot of profanity in it when he sent it to me, but a 9-page email, and it said Dodd-Frank, Dodd-Frank, Dodd-Frank. So if he told me, if you say the words Dodd-Frank, so help me. I said, but I have to. Under Dodd-Frank, you can't qualify because we can't prove your ability to repay. And what it's called, so why is Dodd-Frank causing these problems? It's called foreclosure defense. And the banks are nervous about this. Here's what happens. We lent to this guy with the $5 million, and he comes back a year from now and says, you shouldn't have given me the loan. I can't afford it. He now has a very valid foreclosure defense. So something changed when you look at, let's say, automotive lending. Fourth quarter 2010, it rebounded, and people are buying cars left and right. It's almost like the mortgage industry back in 2001, 2002. So people can buy a car, but they can't buy real estate. Why? Dodd-Frank. So we have this ability to repay rule that makes the banks very nervous that they're not going to be able to foreclose. You don't make your car loan, they repo the car. Fine. The bank, the contract, here you go, take the car back. They can't do that on a house. All of a sudden, they can say, you never should have given me the loan, so I'm not going to repay it. And now you have to prove that you were right in giving them the loan. And so it's crazy. They're concerned they can't get the house back. That's the big problem.
So I have some consumers, most of them are not that way, but some guys playing the litigatory area here because they're just saying, look, didn't you do your due diligence? You shouldn't have never given me this money. Yeah. I don't know where the onus is on personal responsibility here, but doesn't sound very good.
No. And so... that's the big problem. Okay. The banks can't get their asset back.
All right, so let's be fair to Dodd-Frank for just because I am also politically independent. I know the intent was right, but there's some mistakes. For sure, this is going to get overhauled because there's a lot of mistakes that they never intended to happen.
Yes.
Now, whether it gets completely under the bus through the Trump administration, we'll have to see.
Right. Okay. So you have like the Volcker rule, and there's some reserve requirements for banks. That's above my pay grade, not my area of expertise. But there are some parts of it that need to stay in order. But the common sense element has to be. We have to have some common sense. One, you have to be able to let a bank foreclose. I think we can all agree. If you don't make your payment for 3 to 6 months, start packing. Right. Move out of the house, and then that'll free up the lending because the bank knows I can get my house back. My asset back after the borrower defaults. And so that would be one element that they could change. And the second part is there needs to be a point where if somebody doesn't have all their ducks in a row, they can get a loan. Yes, we had it in 2003, 4, 5, where if you had no ducks, you could, the fog and mirror, you could get a mortgage. But if somebody is really strong in one area, it should be a compensating factor for another area. So let's say you don't have a job, you're between jobs, but you have $5 million in the bank. You should be able to say, listen, that $5 million, he can afford the payment for a while, and we sign off on it. But you have to put 20% down. So what I'd like to see is something along the lines of, if you put 3% down or 1% down in the house, you better have your ducks in a row, and you're gonna have to fulfill a lot of paperwork. But if you put 20% down, dangle the keys. 20, 30% down, keys, give them the house. Sign and drive, kind of like automotive. But put the down payment, because when all is said and done and we overanalyze 2001, 2003, it was all when they took the down payment away. That was an organic regulator on the market that no longer existed. It was a barrier to entry. It was like, you want this house, you put $10,000, $20,000 down on it. How often are you going to do that before you just either run out of money or you realize that you're putting all your eggs in one basket? So I'm saying, bring back the down payment for self-employed borrowers. Say to a self-employed borrower, stated income loans were around in the 90s, 80s, 70s. They were around for a long time. But you had to have self-employment income, provable self-employment income. You had to put a decent down payment and good credit. And then it would be like, we won't look at, the tax return.
Well, this is a lot to digest. Don't forget to watch our next segment, Reverse Mortgage Retirement Income, Part 4 of our series on your home mortgage is your #1 IOU. And keep in mind, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always check with your tax consultant, legal counselor, or financial advisor. You've been watching Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game.